Tuesday, February 22nd, 1972, right at this very same school, Patrick Henry High School, 37 black students were manhandled, arms twisted behind their backs, talked smart to, and aggressively put on a bus to be taken to the Hanover County Jail. All of this was for a non-violent, peaceful, sit-down protest. We were taught that violence was not the way to get your message across. When the principal called the police, he turned a peaceful protest into a melee. The police officers started grabbing the black students and loading them onto the bus. Their aggressive tactics turned what was a peaceful protest into a full-scale assault. Some students had their clothes ripped and torn. One particular female student was carried onto the bus, one police officer holding her by her arms and another holding her by her legs. Now, we watched in horror at the treatment of those black students on that day. Police grabbed them up out of their chairs and herded them off to a waiting bus to be taken off to jail.
Lee Davis housed 8th through 12th grades when I went there in the 1963-64 school year. This was the first year Hanover schools were more widely integrated. 6 black students were enrolled at Lee Davis that year. I never thought anything of this, as it was a new school for me too. However, it was disturbing to learn that those students couldn't ride the school bus with the white students, even though the school bus went by their homes. They had to ride a bus to Gandy School and be transported from Gandy to Lee Davis, which, as their parents protested, was ridiculous, since the reason they had petitioned to come to Lee Davis in the first place was because of the distance from their East End homes to Gandy and Ashland. My sister was 4 years ahead of me at Lee Davis, and she said she remembers only one black student attended the school when she was in either 10th or 11th grade. She said it embarrassed her that he was taunted by the white boys in his class.
If the segregation in the school system was going to happen, it was going to be done through the work and on the backs of our black parents. The NAACP in 1964 sent the Hanover County School Board a letter saying, we want full integration. The Hanover County School Board said, the school's already integrated. We got 19 in there, we good. But during that time, the 1968 Supreme Court was really getting annoyed with this type of a model in the school system. And this was just not in Hanover County, but it was throughout the state of Virginia. After very much legal wrangling, in 1969, the Hanover school system was forced to fully integrate all public schools by the Supreme Court. Although Hanover County School Board was finally in compliance with the federal law, it missed the fact that 2 completely different cultures were now living and learning together for the first time ever. School integration was totally foreign to blacks and whites. No one was told what to expect, what the possible problems would be, although we had a good idea, and how to integrate not only the bodies, but also the 2 cultures. I attended Patrick Henry in 1969 with Matt. I didn't have any obvious problems, probably because I obeyed my mother and father to the letter. They told me when they found out that the schools was integrated, they told me, don't go up there messing with them white people. You keep your mouth shut. And that's pretty much what I did. I was quiet as a church mouse. Hanover County has changed tremendously in 51 years, but we still have so much more work to do. Change is difficult and is long-term, but I have to believe that the events of February the 18th through the February the 22nd of 1972 is one of the flashpoints in our history that helps us to continue to promote positive change. Thank you.
Thank you.
In November 1963, I was in the 5th grade, Mrs. Ramey's class. What a wonderful teacher she was. When John F. Kennedy was assassinated, and like others have said, we heard Walter Cronkite's voice on the loudspeaker that was turned on to chronicle that terrible event. And in 1968, the assassinations of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in April, followed by Robert Kennedy in June, just really made things feel utterly catastrophic. I think we all suffered definitely a level of shock and probably some PTSD during those times, no matter what our skin color was. There was an effort at our church with a special intergenerational Sunday school class that was held in the fellowship hall to recognize the events of the civil rights movement with music and readings. And I distinctly recall when we began singing "We Shall Overcome," an adult member of my own family stood up and abruptly walked out. Like everyone else here, a lot of memories are involved with the desegregation of the schools, the high schools. There's something that happened that I remember that made me feel very resentful, actually. And it's when the amazing John M. Gandy High School marching band was not allowed to continue as it had been for so long. Anyone who had ever attended the Ashland Rescue Squad parade or any of the Richmond area parades knew how absolutely fantastic they were. We understood that it was the white parents who didn't let this happen. And now I wish I'd been brave enough to be more outspoken about that.
Although we had excellent teachers at Gandy, I was all too aware of the lack of resources, hand-me-down books, school buses that often broke down. So I sacrificed this familiarity of going to Gandy. When I made that choice, I was criticized by some kids at Gandy, and I was asked not to go by one of the teachers who wanted me to stay because I was playing piano for the Gandy chorus. While attending Gandy, I was picked up in front of my house by a school bus. The one thing I want to say about the Gandy school bus is that we were expected to behave on it. This was not enforced when I attended Patrick Henry. I was not sent any instructions as to what bus to take or anything, so I naively stood at my front door waiting for the school bus to stop for me the first day. It didn't. My mom got a white neighbor to drive me to school. By the way, I was the only black on my bus. When I returned home, I asked to have the bus stop at my house, and it did. Although apparently, that was something that some kids on the bus took issue with. From then on, my rides to and from school were replete with harassment from one particular white boy and some of his comrades. Spitballs and name-calling became the norm as I practiced my best nonviolent response.
Sophomore year, a classmate and I, we'll call him Pete, decided to try out for JV baseball. Tryouts were after school, and Hanover had an activity bus in those days to get everybody home. I didn't know then, but Pete's dad had been a poor role model in race relations. Somehow Pete must have given hint of that on one of those bus rides. He was drawing unfriendly attention to the two of us from a couple of our mostly black co-riders, and I wasn't as tall then as I am now. I went into shut up and look ahead mode. Pete, nope. Instead, he doubled down with, my brothers will take care of you, amping up tension and drawing some company toward our seat. Then, a firm, clear voice spoke up. Sit down and everybody get along. That welcome voice also came from someone having the stature to enforce it. Thank you, Mr. John Gordon. Always a leader, right? Always a leader. I didn't make the team either, like the rock battle, no arm. Matt and I became teammates on the JV football team in the 10th grade. You know, we both grew up in Melmont, and evidently Mary Jane too. Matt and I, same age, but if not for that year's school desegregation, our friendship may not have occurred. One night, I was walking down Cedar Lane to the Elmont Rudson Center I'm thinking I was 13, 14, something like that. It was a mile or so, no street lights, definitely no sidewalks. You walked in the road. I heard a car speeding up behind me, so I jumped in the ditch. As it blew by, a voice called out, "Get out of the road, you," racial epithet. I know name calling was wrong, but I called back, "You honky." Then I laughed to myself and walked on, ever working to become a little less clueless. Thank you for the opportunity today.